If you're trying to become more fluent in French, my number one tip is to stop concentrating on the written French that you learned at school and concentrate instead on improving your spoken French. Written French and spoken French are almost two different languages. I thought I would help make the transition a little bit more smooth by sharing my number one tip to understand spoken French better, no matter how fast. Any guess what it is? French people swallow letters. So let me tell you why we do it, when we do it, and how you can make sense of it anyway. C'est parti! Let's start with a French sentence. Je suis allé prendre un petit café dans le jardin. I went to have a small coffee in the garden. Je suis allé prendre un petit café dans le jardin. There are some silent letters here, of course, like the final T in petit for small and the final S in dans for in. But this is not what today's lesson is about. No. Instead, listen to the same sentence said in everyday spoken French pronunciation. Je suis allé prendre un petit café dans le jardin. That's tough. Did you notice? A lot of letters disappeared. Instead of je suis allé prendre un petit café dans le jardin, it sounds more like je suis allé prendre un petit café dans le jardin. And that is what swallowed letters or eaten letters is all about. It's the difference between, on one hand, written French for school or business or formal spoken French where the pronunciation is clear, even with the silent letters of correct pronunciation, and everyday spoken French on the other hand, where French people speak fast, change the grammar, and eat letters left and right for convenience. This difference is a big part of why understanding everyday spoken French is so challenging. You can learn words in a dictionary or in Duolingo and still struggle to understand them in a real situation. Like talking to a French person in a cafe that you met during your holiday in Paris. Well, don't worry, I got you. As usual, you'll find a full written version of this lesson over on my website with more insights and more examples about today's topic. And it is all free. Just click on the link below the video in the description. When speaking fast, the first letter to disappear in French is the E. Mostly when it is on an unstressed syllable and when it sounds like E, like petit, for example. Remember our example for earlier? Je prends un petit café dans le jardin. Je prends un petit café dans le jardin. All these letters are unstressed and they disappear in spoken French. Je prends un petit café dans le jardin. I'm having a small coffee in the garden. Je prends un petit café dans le jardin. Repeat after me. Je prends un petit café dans le jardin. Again, je prends un petit café dans le jardin. So when you hear a sentence in fast everyday spoken French on TV or in a conversation and you don't recognize some words, you can try to add a few in the middle and see if it makes sense. Or much more simply, you can also practice the most common words with eaten letters and add them directly to your vocabulary. In everyday life, French people do a mix of both. When I hear someone speaking fast, I know that petit actually means petit. But when they cut a letter in a more uncommon word, like the name of the city, for example, Genève, I can add a in the middle and try to make sense of it. So Genève is actually Genève. So let's explore a few more examples with cutting the E. Eating letters is also called l'élision, elision in English. And you might have noticed that it is also already a part of correct French. As you probably know, with small words like je, te, le, etc., the E disappears before a vowel, but not before a consonant. So we say, for example, je vois for I see, but j'entends for I hear. Elle te dit for she tells you, but elle t'appelle, she calls you. Le poisson for the fish, but l'oiseau for the bird. These are the official rules of correct written formal French. Well, in everyday spoken French, it is the same thing, but more. We cut the in small words before consonants as well. Je finis tout de suite is actually pronounced je finis tout de suite. I am finishing right away. Je finis tout de suite. Elle va te montrer le jardin is actually pronounced elle va te montrer le jardin. She's going to show you the garden. Elle va te montrer le jardin. We also have ce que je veux, c'est le numéro de Martin. That's more tricky. Ce que je veux, c'est le numéro de Martin. What I want is Martin's phone number. We would say this. Ce que je veux, c'est le numéro de Martin. Did you get that? Ce que je veux, c'est le numéro de Martin. We also got the inside the longer words, such as il m'a amené un petit café. Is actually il m'a amené un petit café. He brought me a small cup of coffee. Il m'a amené un petit café. Il m'a amené un petit café. We also have c'est ce que le médecin a demandé. This is what the doctor asked for. We should say it. C'est ce que le médecin a demandé. C'est ce que le médecin a demandé. That's tricky. Now, as I told you before, we get letters for convenience in order to speak fast. And that's the limit of those elisions. So here we wouldn't cut two in a row either. For example, in c'est ce que le médecin a demandé. C'est ce que le médecin a demandé. If we cut three it becomes c'est ce que le médecin a demandé. That's much harder to pronounce. I can't say such a thing. So just don't try to overdo it. In general, don't try to cut letters yourself in spoken French if you're not comfortable with the pronunciation. Today's lesson is about understanding spoken French, not necessarily about being understood. And of course, if you want, you can find a list of French words where we commonly cut letters in the blog post for today's lesson. It is on my website and it includes the examples of today and much more. We don't only cut the in everyday spoken French, we also cut other letters. Sometimes it is because the word is very common, such as tu that becomes t apostrophe before a vowel, it is you in the singular. For example, tu es là becomes t'es là, are you here? Tu es là becomes t'es là. Or also, il devient I before a consonant is he in English, as in et il fait quoi? That is usually pronounced et il fait quoi? Et il fait quoi? And what is he doing? Et il fait quoi? Or say something like a word, such as peut-être, maybe, peut-être, that becomes peut-être, or even peut-être sometimes. Elle est peut-être ici becomes elle est peut-être ici. She might be here. Elle est peut-être ici. Elle est peut-être ici. And sometimes, just like in English, we cut the end of words that are too long and too common. You might know a few of them already. For example, un resto for un restaurant, un resto for un restaurant, or un petit-déj, or un petit-déj for un petit déjeuner, breakfast, un ordi for un ordinateur, a computer, un ordi, d'occasion for d'occasion, second hand, d'occasion, l'après-midi for l'après-midi, the afternoon. And I could go on and on and on. And actually I do, where? In the blog post for today's lesson. You will find the link below the video in the description. And sometimes we even swallow an entire word. The most common word that we cut entirely is obviously ne. It is a negation in ne pas, for instance. I have a full lesson on cutting the ne, by the way. You'll find the link below the video in the blog post. In school or in your French lesson, you might have learned how to build a negative sentence in French, such as je ne sais pas. I don't know. Je ne sais pas. And everything else. And that's correct. That's really good. But you need to know that in modern spoken French, we almost cut the ne all the time. Using ne actually sounds way too formal in spoken French. So we would say je sais pas, or even faster and cutting a je sais pas, je sais pas, je sais pas. Or even instead of saying elle n'est pas au restaurant, we would say elle est pas au resto. She's not at the restaurant. Elle est pas au resto. Another word that we often cut is il as an informal pronoun. Most commonly in il y a, il y a. It is the French way to say there is or there are. There is or there are is il y a. For instance, il y a le menu à la fenêtre du restaurant. Il y a le menu à la fenêtre du restaurant. We would say y a le menu à la fenêtre du resto. That's tricky. There's a menu at the restaurant window. Y a le menu à la fenêtre du resto. We also often cut the il in the expression il faut. Il faut, you need to. Il faut becomes just faut. We remove the il. Il faut also translates in one needs to or there needs to be. For example, il faut y aller cet après-midi. Il faut y aller cet après-midi. We cut the il and we say faut y aller cet après-midi. Faut y aller cet après-midi. We need to go there this afternoon. Or literally, there is a need to go there this afternoon. It's an impersonal verb, so it's harder to translate. Faut y aller cet après-midi. Oh, and finally, we also cut the ending of expressions, especially to say goodbye. Like, à tout à l'heure, we would say à toutes for see you soon or see you later. À toutes, à toutes. Or, à plus tard becomes à plus. For again, see you later, literally. A plus, A plus. And here what's funny is that we add the S sound at the end of plus that did not exist in A plus tard. A plus tard becomes A plus, A plus. Okay, so I've been sharing lots of examples and information with you. So now let's back up and even practice what we've seen together today with a few exercises. So, we've seen together that French people cut letters to speak faster, especially the E sound, in small words such as je and le, or in longer words such as médecin, that we say médecin, and amener, that we say amener. We cut the U in tu before a vowel, and the L in il before a consonant. The ending of longer words such as restaurant, we cut, in order to create colloquial words such as le resto. Some entire words such as ne in a negation and il as an impersonal subjects are cut as well. At the same time, what we've really seen is that spoken French doesn't always match the textbook French that you've learned at school. Knowing this will improve your French tremendously, even if you don't remember all the examples of today's lesson. When you're practicing your French, you will notice that some letters disappeared and you will understand better why and how. All this will help you keep your confidence when hearing real everyday spoken French. And with that in mind, let's have some fun with 4 exercises. Here is a French sentence. Je ne passe pas à l'appartement avant ce soir. Je ne passe pas à l'appartement avant ce soir. It means I am not dropping by the apartment before tonight. In my everyday French pronunciation, what can I cut here? Can you hear which letters are cut when I'm going to say this again? Je passe pas à l'appart avant ce soir. Je passe pas à l'appart avant ce soir. Write it down or try to just say it out loud. Je passe pas à l'appart avant ce soir. Yes, I am pronouncing je passe pas à l'appart avant ce soir. Je passe pas à l'appart avant ce soir. I am cutting the negation ne, the in the word je and ce, and I use the colloquial shortened version of l'appartement in l'appart. Except one is in written French and the other is what you would hear in everyday spoken French. Your turn now. How would you cut that sentence? Tu as pris le programme de l'après-midi? Tu as pris le programme de l'après-midi in order to make it sound more like everyday spoken French. You can start writing down your answer. It means, did you take the program for this afternoon? Without cutting anything, it would sound like tu as pris le programme de l'après-midi? Yes, it would probably sound like t'as pris le programme de l'après-midi? T'as pris le programme de l'après-midi? We cut the U in tu before the vowel, and we also get rid of the E sound in le, and we use the colloquial word après-midi for afternoon. We could try to cut the E in de, but it would sound a bit too harsh to say de l'après-midi. That's too hard to say even for me, de l'après-midi. Notice that French people don't always cut every possible thing. You could very well hear t'as pris le programme de l'après-midi? T'as pris le programme de l'après-midi as well? It will depend on the person and the situation, and that's very common with everyday spoken French. Let's try the reverse too. So here is an informal sentence. Faut que j'achète un nouvel ordi. I have to buy a new computer. Faut que j'achète un nouvel ordi. What would be its formal version in written French without the colloquial elisions? I can give you 5 seconds to write it down. Remember that you can pause the video if you need more time. Yes, it would be il faut que j'achète un nouvel ordinateur. I have to buy a new computer. Il faut que j'achète un nouvel ordinateur. We added back the informal pronoun il in il faut, the swallowed e and the end of un ordinateur for a computer. We kept j'achète because here je always loses the e before a vowel, like here, even in the most formal French. And finally, here is your last exercise for today. Create your own sentence in written French using what you already know. Then write down what it is in the spoken French version. Be creative, this is your chance to apply what we've seen today. Go to the blog post for today's lesson and post your answer. I want to read your sentences. You can also keep learning about understanding fast spoken French with me. Click right here on your screen and I will see you in the video. Allez, à tout de suite!